partner at SME Strategy. We facilitate strategic planning sessions, help organizations around the world get aligned towards one destination, and support them in moving forward to where they want to go. So looks like a couple people are joining us right now. So just let the room open just to make sure that you can hear me and see me. If you can just put in the chat, just make sure that the audio and visual is working, because we've been having technical difficulties lately. So I just really want to make sure that everybody can hear me and see me. So on the right, there's a chat box. You can just fill in there, say hi, and just say, hey, where are you from? And what are you hoping to get out of today? And what I am hoping for today is to walk you through a couple things that you might want to consider as you look at doing strategic planning with your team. Both, how to assess if it's the right time to do it. Also understanding the costs of not doing it, as in what happens if you don't get your team aligned towards one destination, if you don't get that clarity in terms of prioritization, what will happen. As well as share, how we approach it, how we implement our programs, so that you can either work with us and that we can partner together. Or if you say, oh, you know what, I just want to borrow some of their methodology, we're okay with that too. So fantastic. Hi, everybody. Great to see you. Where are the donuts? I'm sorry, John, I wasn't able to get everybody donuts today. So I'll do my best for next time. It's for in-person meetings only. But great to see everybody. Thanks for being here. So, just to give you a quick overview, what we found working through the strategic planning process is my colleague Micah, but who we help best. Organizations that I found get the most value out of strategic planning and specifically working with SME Strategy. Typically, they run or own a business of $10 million plus in revenue. They really care about growth and business sustainability, like legacy. They're entrepreneurial and people focused. They want leadership team capacity that are coachable and willing to change. They're value focused. They see strategy as optimal, and they want a partner and trusted advisor. So I say that on the front end because those are the people that we find that we add the most value to, that we help the most, that get the most out of our programs. But we work with small and medium enterprises. So you could be a couple $1 million with a leadership team of 20 or so, or an entire organization of 20. We also have clients that have hundreds of employees, but a lot of those kind of personal attributes remain the same: value focused, care about people, entrepreneurial, and see strategy is optimal. I think one of those things that's really important to think about is that you don't need a strategic plan. I highly recommend it for every organization because it's going to help you stay more focused. It's going to help you get more done. It's going to help your team get on the same page. So I think every organization should think strategically, but not everybody wants to go through the process of a strategic plan. So really what I want to highlight today is the value and benefit of that. And again, if you think it's a good fit for us to work with your team through that, then we'd be happy to have that conversation. This is just to give you an idea of some of the organizations that we've worked with. I've been facilitating strategic planning sessions for the past 11 years, and I've got team members who have been doing this as well all over the world. But we work with all sectors, including, education, manufacturing, food services, technology, real estate, et cetera, financial. What's interesting about these organizations, and when people say, hey, are you a specialist in our industry? And I say, well, no, but we are specialists in strategic planning. And I think that strategic planning and strategic thinking, no matter what industry you're in, is the same. We rely on you, the participant, to be able to bring your tacit knowledge, your experience to the table. We do our research, we try to probe those things, and we think it's actually a value and benefit to be able to take different industries, because that way you have a broad perspective and a broad lens on issues. So just a little background on us and how we look at things. So the number one thing that we solve for, the number one reason people hire us and want to work with us for strategic planning, is because we help teams escape the multiple destination trap. So what is the multiple destination trap? And as an entrepreneur, you might not know this, but I used to run 2 coffee shops. I had an ESL school. I used to put on rock concerts. I had 2 web startups. My background has been in entrepreneurship my entire life. Now, entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial leaders have what I like to affectionately call a shiny object syndrome. where they look over here, or let's say, oh, that's exciting, and then look over here, and say, that's exciting, and then look over here, and they kind of get distracted because there's so much stuff that they could have on their plates. And I find that, again, going back to the people that we help the best, when you have all of these opportunities, it's sometimes hard to figure out which one you should prioritize. So you can reflect on your own for you in the room today, and I'm looking at you over here, is does your organization have more opportunities than it has time, money, and energy to go after? Does your organization have more opportunities than it has time, money, energy to go after? And then, a sort of second question is, do you find it challenging to be able to work through those, to prioritize, to, make sure that you're moving forward on those on an effective way? So I got the chat over here, so I'll keep looking at that. But that's really like a big challenge that we found with teams, is that they have so many different directions that they want to go. And it kind of sticks them in place, because instead of moving confidently towards one or two of those directions, that they actually spin around in circles saying, oh, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do this. And you kind of spin around. And that's why we call it a trap. The other element of this multiple destination trap is that everybody has a different version of success. Everybody has a different version of success. So for me, if I say success is over here, and you say success is over here, and you say success is over here, then it means we're all moving in different directions. And so if you think of an organization that should all be moving in one direction or towards one destination, then what does that create? Well, it creates a bunch of challenges. It creates frustration. It creates uncertainty. And it makes that your leadership team and your employees don't know what they need to be doing to move forward. And so you say suck, because instead of moving confidently towards one destination, you stay where you're at because you don't want to make the wrong choice or the wrong decision. So what I want to highlight here is that there's costs to the trap, and some of these might apply to you, some of these might not. So you can kind of reflect on your own situation to see if you're in the multiple destination trap and what it might be costing you. So the number one thing we see is uncertainty. Uncertainty because the team is not sure the best thing to do to move the business forward. They've got more opportunities than they have time, money, energy to go after. And so they just don't know what to focus on. And instead of focusing on one thing, they kind of focus on a lot of things a little, and it doesn't really move you forward. Number two is a lack of progress. Because you're spreading your resources in so many different areas, that you never really move forward on anything. Like, okay, we made a bit of progress here, a bit of progress here, a bit of progress here, a bit of progress here. But those like big major issues, those big rocks that you need to kind of overcome in order to get your company or your organization to that next level, they don't move as much as you'd like. And then that creates frustration, that creates doubt, that creates uncertainty, and people just get annoyed. And so if you aren't making that progress, then you're going to get less engaged in your work. So in some cases, employees get bored and apathetic because, they don't want anything to change. And then some people get bored and apathetic because things are changing too fast and all over the place. Ultimately, what happens with that lower engagement is that people feel disconnected. So one side or the other, either there's too much change, not enough change, or they just want it to stay exactly the same. If there's not that clarity of where we're going and why we're going there, people are going to become disengaged. They're going to become less productive, and then they might quit, or worse, they're disengaged and they stay, which is a big problem that we're seeing right now. And the last piece of it is stress. And when I say stress, it's typically on the leader, typically on the CEO or the executive director, because without a clarity of where you're going, without clarity of what success looks like, and without a structure or framework to empower your management team and your leadership team, then you have to micromanage. In your brain, it's kind of clear, but in their brain, it's not clear. So you have to go in, support them, go in, support them, go in, support them, which means that you have to do kind of lower value activity, hand holding them, versus high value leadership activity. And it'll burn you out over time. So I just want to check in with y'all. Is this all making sense so far? Does some of this resonate with your team? Some of the things that, if not what you've seen in your organization right now and in some organizations that you've seen in the past? I found that this kind of globally applies, but I'm curious for you, is this resonating? 1, 2, 3, or 4 of them? And then if you haven't seen it yet, on the right-hand side, there's a chat function, and you can just drop in a note and say, yeah, that makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. These things cost you money. And it's not, people don't always recognize it because you can't see it from the outside. But when you can actually recognize that if these things are happening, then there's a cost for it. So I'll move on. So what I want to do is actually kind of a fun exercise. I think it's a fun exercise. And I'd love for you to grab a pen and paper, something to write on, for you to kind of assess yourself, to say, hey, are we in the multiple destination trap, or are we moving towards one destination? So this is our scorecard that we have, that we use if people are kind of ever wondering, are they in the one destination or are they stuck? So it's out of 10. So all you need is basically to be able to write 10 numbers. You can do this on a notepad. You can do this on your phone, whatever. And so I'll go through each of these. So first is, for your organization, where you sit right now, do you have a clear single destination for the future of your business? Or do you not have a clear single destination for your business? This out of 10. So give yourself a 1 or 5 or 10 or whatever. Okay. Do you have a detailed roadmap to accomplish the vision? Or do you not have a detailed roadmap to accomplish the vision? Our team is fully aligned with the vision and the roadmap. Our team is not fully aligned with the vision and the roadmap. Our team is fully engaged and totally productive. Our team is not as engaged or as productive as we'd like. We communicate clearly our vision and roadmap to the team. So that's top down as well as bottom up. We do not communicate clearly our vision, our roadmap to our team. Our team members work towards common goals across the organization, or our team members work in isolated silos from each other. We have common values, behavior, and language within our organization. We do not have common behaviors and language within our organization. Are you tracking progress against your goals? Are you not tracking progress against your goals? Maybe sometimes. We know who is doing what and everyone is accountable. Or we don't know who is doing what and no one is being held accountable. And then we're achieving our full potential as an organization. Or we're not. So if you add all of those up, you should have a score out of 100. Okay. And I'll just open this up. I'll give you, 30 seconds or so to finish that up. And if you're brave enough, or I want to say brave. Yeah, I'll say brave. If you want to share your score, I'd love to know what you got. Because the score is not for me. The score is for you to say, hey, if the right-hand side is everything that we want, and what would be kind of an ideal scenario for our organization, how far are we from having that be? So what was your score? So if you want to drop it in the chat, I'd be super curious as to what your scores are, just so, for yourself, you can reflect. And there's no good or bad. The reason you're here is probably because you want to learn how to do strategic planning better, or you want to get your team aligned. So the first step of that is taking an honest and critical assessment of where you're at. So Eric, Mia, Basha, Royce, Pierre, Suzanne, Alicia, Aman, Romeo, let me know. What did you get in your scores? I'm so curious. 51. Perfect. You're in the right place, Alicia. Anyone else have a score that they want to share? See, the great thing about this, and this scorecard is available on our website, and if you want it, I can send it to you as a follow-up. What's great is you can do this with your team, or if you're on an executive committee and you're trying to convince others that you need to do strategic planning. Numbers don't lie. And what I find really powerful is when you do this with a leadership team, then they can say, oh man, like we need to work on this. It's an area that we're not doing great in. So how can we improve it? How can we apply it? Oh, Suzanne, excellent. 75. Amazing. My challenge to you is, what does everybody else on your team say? And I'm not saying this is the case with you, but I have seen a lot of people that rate themselves very highly when they're in the senior leadership, and then the middle managers and the lower managers rate themselves low. And it's not that there's a right, but just consider that there's a difference in perspective. And so just to be able to align that within your organization. But if you got 75 across the board, excellent. You're doing awesome. I would think 80 is like kind of ideal. Great. So let's go back. So really, like, the cost of that trap is, you can kind of imagine from your score what the cost might be in terms of your kind of total revenue, total impact. If you're only performing at kind of 50% capacity, then you're only having 50% impact. So there's a lot of upside potential for you to be able to get aligned and get clear. And of course, for all of you that didn't share anything, you can reflect for yourself. Hey, am I doing as well as I'd like to? And so our solution to being able to move your team forward through that, away from the multiple destination trap into the one destination, is our alignment program. Okay. And so how we do that, and I'll show you the agenda shortly, is walk your team and get your team aligned on your vision, where you're going, your mission, what you do, how you get there, your values, the way you do things within your organization, your priorities, focusing on a couple things, doing them really well instead of a lot of things poorly, and then goals and actions. So making sure that your strategy is in alignment, making sure that your vision, mission, values, strategic priorities, goals, and actions are in alignment is the key to making sure everybody knows where we're at and where we're going. So if there's any questions, I'll let you drop that in the chat. On the right-hand side, this honeycomb graphic is how we look at implementing the strategic plan. So our next workshop on that is going to be on March 23rd. So I won't talk about that too much today. What I will say is that implementing a strategic plan successfully and making all of that change happen is not just doing a bunch of stuff. It's really about putting together a structure and an environment around your organization for it to be successful. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I want to walk you through the framework that we use for strategic planning. So when we do this with teams, we either do it over 2 days in person or 5 3-hour sessions virtually. Okay, so 2 days in person, 5 3-hour sessions virtually. We also have pre-work and post-work that I'll talk about later, but this is fundamentally, if you're looking for somebody to facilitate your planning process, this is the exact framework that we'll use. And it follows a 5-step process. Okay, so we look at where are we now, which includes celebrating our accomplishments, all the things that we've done well, a SWOT analysis so everybody can get on the same page in terms of where they're at, what's going well, what's not going well, and then a pestle analysis to look at trends that are happening in the marketplace and around us and in the world that might impact our business. So everybody being aligned, and you'll hear me say aligned a lot, on where we are now. Next is the future state. And Mohammed, I see your question about pre-planning. I'll talk about that after. Future state, where are we going? So this is really aligning everybody on the one destination. So making sure everybody's aligned on, if we're totally successful in 3 years' time. So let's say we're totally successful March 9th, 2025. How will we know? And making sure that we have one vision of success that everybody is working towards. Okay, one vision of success that everyone is working towards. And then mission, in order to accomplish that vision, who are we, what do we do, who do we do it for? So a lot of organizations have a mission or purpose statement. We're not trying to rewrite a vision statement or a mission statement. It's really to try to make that the where we're going and what we're going to do to get there way more clear, so that you use it as a strategic question, as in, what are we going to do and what are we not going to do? A lot of organizations say we're going to do this and this and this and this, but it doesn't actually have the conversations about what we're not going to do. So when you get aligned on a vision and aligned on a mission that's very specific, then it filters your decisions. We're either getting closer to where we want to go or further away. We're either doing what we want to do or not. And that's really the whole purpose of our alignment program, is to make it like a decision rule. So next, once we look at where we are now, where we're going, and we look at what's going to get in our way, we look at values and behaviors as a driver to performance. And we also do a risk analysis. So the risk analysis is identifying the gaps between where we are and where we want to get to. From there, we look at what do we need to do to move us forward. So we set 3 strategic priorities. So instead of having 5 or 7 strategic priorities when we're spreading our resources and kind of spreading them out evenly, we focus on a couple things, do them really well, and move on. I find it helps teams focus. It helps teams be more clear. And it really just like streamlines all the activities. And as human beings, we kind of remember things in 3. So it's easier to focus on 3 things versus trying to remember 5 or 7. So once we have those strategic priorities, then we cascade that into SMART goals so that we know measurably if we've accomplished success in each of those areas. Okay, if success was a place, how will we know? I see some strategic plans that don't have any SMART goals, which means there's a difference in understanding as to what success is and if we've actually accomplished it or not. So having SMART goals as part of your strategic priorities, I believe, is critical. And then next, we move into how are we going to implement our plan, which includes action planning and communication planning. And then what we talk about are critical capacities, which was that honeycomb graphic. So 5 steps, where are we now? Where are we going? What's going to get in our way? What do we need to do to get us to where we want to go? And then how are we going to implement our plan and begin the implementation of that strategic planning process? It's a very, very full agenda for 2 days. We just made a video of our overview of a 2-day agenda. And you can also find the full 2-day agenda with timing on our website. You just Google strategic planning 2-day agenda, SME strategy, and you'll find it. It just works, folks. It's an awesome process. It's an awesome system when led well. And our facilitators are great at pulling out all of that information, making sure that your team is on the same page and making sure that everybody understands each stage of this. Where I see teams falter is when they try to only do it in 1 day. There's just not enough time to process all of the inputs that you need to be able to make your plan a success. So Mohammed asks, what kind of marketing and financial information do you have at hand in the planning sessions? I'm going to tell you directly, we as facilitators do not take the financial information or the marketing information. We don't like kind of present it at the front end. We assume and expect the team to have an understanding of where they're at and where they need to go, because they're always talking about strategy. So the only time that I think you need a specific marketing information as an input and a specific financial information as an input is when you are making a very important and calculated and targeted strategic decision. And that in itself is more of an operational piece of the strategy. I find 98% of the time when we go through this, teams have an idea of where they want to go. They just need to articulate it clearly. What we do as part of the planning process is we do a survey ahead of time. We also do interviews ahead of time, and we do a document review ahead of time. So all of those things serve as inputs. But fundamentally, as a leadership team, the biggest problem that we see is that it's not about do we go left or do we go right? It's usually that some of us are going left and some of us are going right, and we're moving in different directions. You can get into the why and how of that after, and I'm happy to expand on that in a separate call. But I find most of the time, the problem isn't they don't know where to go. It's that they're going in different directions. So that's the process we use. So I talked about the pre-work. We do surveys and interviews on the front end. And then on the back end, we create a PowerPoint, a one-pager, and we provide a couple follow-up calls to support you and your team with the implementation. One thing, and Jason dropped the link for our 23rd webinar on the implementation program, is that most teams spend so much time on the planning and they forget about what they're going to do for the implementation. 2 days of planning, 1,100 days of implementation. So making sure that as part of your planning process, you do talk about implementation, because otherwise you'll end up with a plan that gets left on the shelf and you're not going to have something that's adaptive. And so that's like a really big thing that we found for entrepreneurial organizations is the ability to create a plan that's rigid enough to give direction, but flexible enough that it doesn't limit you to new opportunities or changes in the marketplace. So happy to walk through that with anybody about your teams. Any questions about the agenda, about the process, about the flow? As I mentioned, the biggest thing for us is to get alignment. One thing that I'll share with you just as we finish up here today, and I'll drop the link in the chat. If you are interested in learning more about our services and how we do things, you can visit the link that I put in the chat, and you can learn more about our programs. You can watch a video testimonial. That's what I look like in a suit. A testimonial about one of our clients. You can learn more about our alignment program. And then for those of you that are interested in aligning your board or leadership team around clear vision, mission, values, goals, strategic priorities, and action, it's $12,500 USD to do a remote strategic planning session, so virtually, or $16,500 in person. So we work Canada, US mostly, but around the world as well. And then if you'd like to have a conversation about what that might look like for your team, please feel free to reach out. And then we also have a little bit more about our alignment or implementation programs here. So you can learn more about our critical capacities for implementation. And then these are our implementation packages, as well as some frequently asked questions about strategic planning. So should you do it virtually or in person? There's pros and cons to each. I find that actually they're both good. I think virtual is slightly better, but I know a lot of people are getting together to meet in person now. So yeah, happy to answer any of those questions. Perfect. So I'm just going to go back to the main screen and answer any other questions that you all might have. So your framework produces better results with companies with how many employees? That's a great question. We always work with, or typically work with, the highest level of the organization. So we worked with the senior management team, as I mentioned, of companies that are typically 10 to 100 million in revenue. But the process is always the same. So whether it's a $3 million company or a $50 million company, the alignment program itself is the same. The difference is in the execution and making sure that you stay on top of it. But our sweet spot is that 10 to 100 million, which is typically, what would that be? 100 employees, 100 to 200 employees, sometimes 50 to 200. The only difference after that is how much cascading you do. And the complexity. We find that we work better with more complex organizations because there's more to do on the people side. But fundamentally, still 2 days going through that process. Perfect. One of the cool things, just as we finish up here, you're so welcome. My video turned off. Great. See, that's why I remember these things. One of the things that's really cool about leading this process with teams is at the end of the 2 days, or at the end of the virtual time, everybody's so much more clear about where they're going and what they need to do to get there. They just feel like lighter having gone through the conversations. And so in closing, I just kind of want to leave you with this, is if you did this survey for yourself and you got a score, or you're reflecting on your team, consider that there's more people on your team than just you. And so being able to, as a leader, effectively answer their question, understand their doubts, fears, and worries, and to be able to put all of that information on the forefront will help create a clear path for you and your people to move forward. So getting the time, making the time to go through the strategic planning process will accelerate your team's performance drastically. And that's every single time we've worked with a team, they feel lighter, they feel more clear, and they feel more engaged on where they're going and how to get there. And so it's a huge, huge confidence boost and huge value. So happy to have a conversation with you. We're booking into May of 2022. So this is recorded in March. We're booking into May. So if you're interested in working with us, please do reach out. Happy to have a conversation. It takes about 3 weeks from kind of signing a contract until the session to do all the pre-work. We'll facilitate your process and then provide you a written recap within 10 business days. But next step, book a conversation with me or somebody on my team. We can walk you through our process, understand more your organization, make sure that we're a fit. And then if we are, we can get started and get your strategic planning session on the books for 2020. So I'll stick around a little bit longer if y'all have any questions. Otherwise, it's been a pleasure chatting with you today, pleasure sharing with you today. I hope you got a lot that'll help you move your team, get them aligned towards one destination, help you escape the multiple destination trap. And I just appreciate you being here and watching. And once again, my name is Anthony Taylor. I'm the managing partner at SME Strategy. I'm happy to answer any questions for you. Thanks so much for joining today.